So morning everyone. So this session is going to be very, very different from what we've done so far. In the normal session, the session has always been about me completely answering each and every question, being there for you non-stop. Here I want to do something different over the next 60 to 90 minutes. I'd want you to focus on how or what are the things that you should change. How should your brain be processing things over the next 1 month so that you deliver well. What is the psychological aspect of test taking, and how do you reach that space, right? So we're talking about tests, we're talking about performance in tests. So story time will have two stories this time, and both stories have to do personally with me and taking tests, and these two maybe were for me the most important parts of, say, my journey as a, not, I think, I don't like to use the word journey, but say part of my student life. These two stories were very, very important. And it is very, very ironic that this happened, that both of these happened very close to or around the CAT, or around the just before that. So I feel that both of these things were very important for me in that sense, as far as test taking or preparing for test scores. So the first thing happened in the third year of my engineering, and I in the second year actually of my engineering, and I absolutely love. I'm forgetting. Why am I forgetting this? Was it EM1 or EM2? I think it was EM2 only. Yeah, engineering mechanics 2. So I really loved physics since childhood. But I always loved. While it was a very weird thing that I was not good at math problem solving, but I loved physics problem solving for some reason. And ICSE math physics was always way above the regular syllabus that was there. So my 11th, 12th also was fairly easy for me because of for the ICSE syllabus. And by the time I went into engineering also, engineering mechanics and dynamics in the mechanical engineering, this was fairly this thing. So what happened? The paper was fairly simple. It was in my that back in the day, it was 5 questions. Each question had A and B, two options. You have to choose one option. You have to answer one question from each of the 5. So out of your 10 questions, every question you have 2 choices. You either choose question A or question B. So fairly simple. Because I love this subject so much, I did every damn thing that I could. I did every damn thing that I could. Where I mean that I solved all the books that one could possibly solve for to this thing. So Indian books, foreign books, every damn thing. I went for a tuition also for some reason. I went for a tuition also, and I solved questions there. Everything was almost as if I just preparing like absolute. I don't think I prepared more in terms of sheer effort put in for any other, for a single subject. It was to do with my love for the subject as well as everything else. What happened on test day? I just absolutely blanked out. I started on each problem, not as I had to solve 5 problems in close to, say, I don't know whether it was, I don't remember whether it was 2 hours or 3 hours, the exam, and I couldn't solve a single problem. I would start the first one, my mind would get jammed somewhere in the middle, and I'll start the next one, the third one, because there are some marks for steps. I scored a 27 out of 100. So that was the first time I failed in a subject. So yeah, during my engineering, I do have what you call a subject that I didn't make it. But that thing really hit me very, very hard, because to be a fairly good student throughout and fail is not a good feeling. And after putting in so much effort, and when I looked back after that, so I'm not somebody who gets very emotional about failure. I don't, what you call, feel bad that much as I feel angry and try to figure out what happened. I never feel sad. I just feel angry and I try to figure out, what this thing is. So I figured that I over prepared. I absolutely over prepared, where after a point, I stopped actually thinking and I was just mechanically solving so many problems. Right? I was just solving problems where there was no incremental benefit from that practice session. I was just solving problems, the same sort of problem, one pattern change, the other, it's just a change of numbers, and I solved that endlessly. And there was, after a point, there was so mental fatigue, there was so much mental fatigue that by the time I went to the test, I had actually burnt out. and my brain was not fresh at all, right? Because I had already done a lot of prep. So, what was the big learning for me from that? Listen, after that, one thing that I told myself was, I am not going to prepare like a donkey ever again in my life. If I understand something, I understand something. To get a hang of it, I need to solve two problems. But I know when I have understood something, and after that, I am not going to go ahead and just no. I had good sleep. I had everything the day before. In fact, for me, sleep is not that big an issue. I can function without sleep as well. But it was just that my brain stopped. I felt I had burnt out because I was preparing for a long time because I was passionate about it. And that is when I realized that, okay, out of say 100 hours of prep that I put in, how many of it did I actually learn and get better at something? Or how much of it was repetitive action? I felt a lot of it was repetitive action. And that completely changed everything for me. The rest of my engineering became very, very peaceful. It became very, very peaceful in that I was just, for me, the gap between learning, where you're preparing and learning something for the first time, understanding something, applying something, and performing in a test, all of those things disappeared. Because how are they different things? When I'm learning, I'm trying to understand something and I get it. And can I understand and not apply it? Because if I cannot apply it, I've not understood it. And if I'm applying and understanding something, how is it different from a test? So is a test a everything becomes a simple function of, say, it's the same thing. Those divisions starts, see, just went off in my head, and I stopped. More importantly, I stopped doing donkey work. Right? So my friends would then sit and say, practice a lot, where my practice reduced a lot in terms of, say, donkey work of practice reduced a lot. And what I started getting from every practice session, that because I'm just thinking, my brain started working a lot more. Doesn't mean that you don't need to do practice. You do practice, but you practice with a lot of purpose. So those of you who in the next 1 month, you need to figure out, because each one of you is very, very different. This is something that you need to get in mind. The second thing, the second very, very important story, which is linked to the first, but I didn't realize it at that point of time. Because sometimes what happens is that you realize things in one context, but you're not able to take it to another context. So my best friend, who was prepared now, and that time I just met him, and he's awesome with respect to tests. He already came into the CAT prep with a crazy score on the GRE. So he felt he came in with a 2390 out of 2400 on the GRE, which is quite crazy. It was the highest in the city at that point of time. His best friend, this was the city I'm talking about, is Vizag. His best friend, and somebody whom I didn't know, had 1 month before went and put a 2360 out of 2400. He went and put a 2390 out of. When I say went and put, because there was no center in Vizag, we had to go to Hyderabad to take the test. He put a 2390, and a girl in his class in a few weeks' time went and put a 2400. So that was, so they he came from a very good batch, so to say. So when he joined CAT prep, he already had that score, but he never seemed like a serious chap to me. So the odd day when I was late to the SimCat or to the mock cat to take, and we used to take mocks in a school or a college, whichever was the venue. I would be parking my bike, and when the odd day that I was late, I would find that he was late. Every time I was late, he was late, and that means that he was late almost every single day to take the test. So I took the CAT, we got scores and good scores with this thing, and so during the time when we were preparing for the GDPI, and after the GDPI, we were waiting for the results. Our mentor at that point of time, he was greedy. He had already publicized this guy's GRE score, despite the fact that he didn't prepare for GRE with them. So he was like, okay, let me see if I can make this guy take the GMAT. So I can get a GMAT score also out of him. And maybe I'll sponsor his GMAT score, and I can, promote the success and whatever. So he asked, he coaxed my friend into, taking the GMAT. He just went, so I by that time was teaching also. I was teaching as well. So I took a class, I came out, and this guy comes out, and he was like, I was like, what happened? How come you're here? He's like, no, sir asked me to take a test, so I just came and took a test. Okay, GMAT mark. Okay. How much did you score? He said, yeah, 760. I was like, oh, okay. So, but the fact was that he just said, yeah, 760, just like that. I was like, what is this? How does this guy just do it? In terms of, because it wasn't that easy for me. It wasn't that easy for me in terms of, yeah, and this guy doesn't seem to bother. Also, I asked him later, okay, see, how do you do it? How do you, because he's a good friend, because he's a very good friend, and my ego didn't come in the way. If it was somebody else whom I don't know, there was no way in hell I was going to go and ask him that, how are you so good? So that I would never do that. So, and it's just the first mock that he took, just like that. So the answer that he told me, I still remember it. He said, Tony, if you are somebody who's passionate about life, who wants things in life, you want to get into IMA. He's like, I've suffered some losses in my life, and again, or rather, whether despite of that, I've been I've not been a very high end or a very positive person. I've generally been slightly depressed, low on motivation. But when I go in to take a test, I have nothing in my head. It is just the question and me. And that just hit me. It just, it's just the question. So I am reacting only to the question. There is nothing else in my head that goes on. So I just read question and I answer the question. I read the question, I answer the question, because he doesn't want shit. He's like, I don't want, it doesn't matter to me. So he said, that's what he said. It doesn't, he said, you might feel bad, or rather, you might feel sad if you don't get into IMA. You might be thinking about that. He's like, I do not actually, he's like, I don't bother about IMA. It's like, I don't really, bother. It's okay. He's like, I don't care. Sometimes I feel that maybe I should start caring about things. Right? So it doesn't mean that everybody should be like him. That's a separate, thing. But the key part was what he said was that, somebody was saying good thing, he's a karma yogi. Yeah, in a sense, he is that. He's not, those who meet him know that he's not a karma yogi or anything. But the fact is, without knowing it, he was just that. As in, for different reasons, he was just that, because of no motivation. But there's another reason that I'll come in later as to why he was able to perform also on the test. There is another reason that is linked, he just went in and he was just doing it. And that was an important lesson. So with these two stories, so today, I'm not going to give you very specific, I'm not going to peel the banana, cut the banana, put it into a fork and put it into your mouth. I'm going to tell you stuff, and you have to just take that in and try to internalize, right? So those are the two stories that are there. And now, what is the agenda? What we will, for this session, what will we do? What you will not get in this session is a 1 month study plan, personalized Q&A answer. Why? Because if there was a 1 month study plan, a standard plan that everybody could use, I will give that to you, and I would have run a blog post on that. Everybody do this. It's like, it's not a gym thing, right? Do this workout, do these 5 exercises for 21 days, and you'll get a 6-pack. Unfortunately, it is not that, because each one of you is very, very different, right? So for each one of you is in such a different place that any plan that I give for anyone will not make any sense, right? Because at this stage, I can, unless the only thing I can do, I can be of, say, help to you at a personal level, is if I actually can see what you do when you're solving. So when students say, sir, I'm not able to still get it right, I'm like, because I do not know what you're doing when you're faced with a question, so I cannot do anything. And me sitting personally with each one of you is not possible. So this won't happen. But what I can do is give you enough for more insights for you to figure out what to do for yourself, right? And that's the whole agenda. So what are the things that we'll be looking at? Your performance. I'm not doing well in one section area. This is something that I'm getting a lot. I'm unable to clear the cutoff. My scores are inconsistent in one section. I'm unable to do well in test taking conditions in this particular section. This section, that is a problem. Next one. I'm unable to perform only in proctored SimCats. I'm able to do it in take-home SimCats also, but proctored. So some people are having, so whenever in practice I can do it, but I'm unable to perform only during a proctored SimCat, even in a take-home SimCat. So just so that everybody knows, take-home SimCats are just very recent year SimCats, like last year or before last year. So that SimCat, that DILR set in a take-home SimCat was torture for whoever was taking it last year or before last year as a proctored SimCat. So it's the same damn thing. It's just in your head. Yeah. So this, your preparation. What should I practice in the next 10 to 30 days in terms of how many tests should I take? Should I revise concepts again? Should I do more section tests? So broadly, some guidelines for that. About the test, what should I target? How much should I score to get this percentile? How many questions should I attempt to get this percentile? So those questions. Most importantly, this. Actually, this was the essence of this session. Last mile to cat session. So what should I'm always scared that like always, I will not do in math. I'm scared of the timer. I'm just scared of tests. So this is what I wanted to handle the most. The last two bits, how many questions to target, how do I, this thing and this. But I know that till you have all of these other questions on your mind, you're not going to listen to what I said. This session, usually last mile to cat was a 1-day session. We used to do a session for Quant, DI, and VRC. And at the end, I would close by taking this particular session. So this year, because of the whole online, things have been different. And which is why this last bit, I thought I'll extend it a bit. I'll just do a recap of what we did as well, and then, handle this. Yeah. This is maybe the most important. If you think that you can be the same you with your same anxieties, same worries, same restlessness, same impatience, whatever, or in every way the same, you don't have all of that. And you can say this thing, you can say, score crazily well. Unless you're already scoring crazily well, it is tough. So each one of you has to reprogram your brain to some extent that it is safe for the next few weeks. You're completely in the zone, and your in the zone state of mind cannot be your everyday state of mind. So you'd have to reprogram your mind for peak performance. So that is what we need to look at. How do you, every single time when you go out to take a test or when you're practicing at home, how are you going to be in your in say prime mental condition? You start by being your most mature and composed self for the next 90 minutes. Nothing is going to change from tomorrow morning. Everything changes from today. That's why I have a favorite saying that there is nothing called Monday. Monday is the biggest illusion in the world. What do I mean by that? Because Monday is just a name, right, for something. So everybody thinks of, say, changing everything from Monday, but there is nothing called Monday. There is nothing called tomorrow. Everything is there just today. So from now on, for the next 90 minutes, so start from now, I want you to be your most mature and composed self. So I'm not just going to ask you to do that, right? I'm going to ensure that you do that. How? I will not take any questions during this session. Absolutely not. I want you guys to forget everything, because if you need to reprogram your mind, first thing you need to do is stop all the things. Because I've seen that in every session, students have say one or two things that is just there in their head. It's like, my 2 pens that everybody, and that stops them from truly absorbing the core of the session, that maybe what I want to communicate or what other students sometimes get. Right? So I will not take any chat, because I don't want myself also to be distracted by anything in the chat. I put in most of the questions that will be there. If there are questions outside of this, then I think that maybe those questions are not important. But at least for the entire duration, there won't be a Q&A, right? My team will disable. I just want you to sit back and absorb everything that I'm saying to understand the essence of what I'm saying. Yeah. So that is something that I want to do. First one, the first set of questions that we got, your performance. Right? When we talk about performance, I'm looking at the 7 skills for test taking. So I'm going to cover 7 skills. These 7 skills will determine not every single thing in your test can go back to these 7 skills, right? So I'm going to reveal the 7 skills stage-wise, not everything right at the beginning, right? And how what their importance is. So you should be able to pinpoint, right, as to this is exactly the reason that I'm facing in this section, in this on the test overall, in this area, or on this topic also, right? So it's completely a function of this particular. So what are the 7 skills? First and most important thing is selection. I cannot stress this more because selection, what is selection like? Selection is like a batsman deciding which ball is he going to hit and which ball is he not going to, right? And unless, so it is purely that. It's like, or a footballer deciding, does a footballer take a shot, right, to hit every ball that comes to his feet into the goal straight away? No. So selection that way is absolutely crucial. Even if there are only say 20 questions in 60 minutes on quant, I will still do it in 2 rounds. I will still do the sitters first and I will do the tough ones next. So selection is one of the most important things. So one of the skills is selection. The next thing is accuracy. You're selecting the right questions, you're doing a certain number of questions, but if you're not getting 80% of the questions right, that means the return on your time invested is very, very low. So you know that accuracy is the next thing. The third thing is concepts. Do you have the core concepts or not? Right? So do you know stuff or not? Because concepts matter more in this. Now, you need to identify where your problem or problems lie. I have a selection issue overall in a section or in an area. It can be that your selection issue is not necessarily overall. Your selection issue can be at a section level because you're not able to figure that out in that section. It can be second. Why do I say area? Because it can be that you like arithmetic so much that you end up attempting all arithmetic questions irrespective of difficulty. So selection need not be at a this thing level. So it can be. So you need to figure out this for yourself. You might not know it, but you might be doing it in your head. You might be committed to selecting and doing every arithmetic question irrespective of difficulty. I know because there is a tendency for me. It's at a topic level. I think that mixture and allegation करने के लिए पैदा हुआ हूँ. मतलब if I don't do mixture and allegation, who will do mixture and allegations, right? And weighted averages. So I have seen that. So I also learned to say not get into a hard question that will be a time sink in that area. But I have to tell myself that do not engage with that particular this thing, right? So as I said, as I said in the past, what you love most can end up hurting you the most. So that is exactly what I mean by this, in this context. It can be that you attempt all LR, forget this, or you don't like DI, so you attempt all LR and irrespective of difficulty. So you need to figure out. So all of these highlight selection issues that you have still not mastered, selection. I always get stuck in crazy RCs. Something or the other happens, I get stuck in crazy RCs, right? So first figuring out whether you have a selection issue in a section, in an area, on eve, or even at a topic level or overall. Next, I have an accuracy issue overall in a section area. I get very low marks in VA. I make many silly mistakes in quant. I just cannot cross 60% in IQ. How we'll tackle with this? We'll go with this. So do you have this? Again, you need to boil this down to an area level. I have problem with VA, or I have problem with jumbled paragraphs. Forget rest. You can go up to a topic level figuring out as to where you have this, because it depends on where. So for example, somebody is already scoring say 90 might find that the problems are at a topic level and maybe not necessarily at an area level. Whereas somebody scoring a 60 might find that the topics are at area level. So one rule does not apply to everyone. Somebody scoring very low might have problems at a sectional level only in accuracy or selection. Right? So where you are determines the scale or the grade at which the problem is. So understand that. It's not, so I'm not talking, I'm not mentioning things in, I'm not saying something, that it's a generic thing. You have to figure out where the problem lies for you. Yeah. What about concepts? I lack conceptual clarity. I don't know anything about logarithms. I don't know anything about partitioning. Those who do not know what partitioning it is, so far, don't worry. Even if you do not know for the end, etc. Those who know about partitioning and who do not know what it is, you can think about right? Because अगर अभी तक partitioning किस चिड़िया का नाम है सुना ही नहीं है, then it's not going to hurt you in the exam also. It's fine. But this is something that you need to know. I don't know anything about this, so on this particular concept, so that means that I am not able to score at all out of logarithm questions. I am not able to score at all out of this or that. So, and so I do not attempt calculation based. So this is for you to figure out, where that issue is. So essentially, when you say where your marks are going to come from, where your next marks are going to come from, at a overall level, at a sectional level, you need to figure out where are my marks going to come from. So everybody, you should take a screenshot of this one. In case you want to take a screenshot of the previous ones also, you can. So I'll just pause it for a while. If you want to take a screenshot, you can. Yeah. So you need to make a table like this. Reading comprehension, my selection is great, my accuracy is an issue, there are no new concepts to learn. Verbal ability, so this is the map of exactly where you are going to get your marks from. Right. So if you see clearly, so this is a random case. So data interpretation, there is a selection problem, there is an accuracy problem, and I do not know calculation. So you know that you're missing out on a lot of marks here. Right? So you are already said fairly decent in maths, but you're stuck at a particular score. You don't know why you're stuck. Maybe you're stuck because you in geometry, you know only half the stuff. Your selection is good. You don't select the crazily tough geometry questions. You also, your accuracy is good, but you don't know anything about circumcenter, orthocenter, in-center. You don't know anything about polygons. You know you have a concept issue there, right? You know that in arithmetic, you have a selection problem. You end up attempting everything. You don't do an ABC approach there, right? You see that in verbal ability, you have a huge selection is right, but your accuracy is a problem. So this is a chart that you need to make. This will tell you, all the reds will tell you in the first two columns where your marks are going to come from. And the last column will tell you. So all of this is exactly going to tell you where are your marks hiding. It is not about should I maximize my strength, should I maximize my weaknesses. This is going to tell you where your marks are. So that is, so always fix the first column, second column, third column. Without the first and second column being fixed, if you go to the third column, nothing will happen. So a lot of people can first try to fix the last column, but you've done the last column. So what will happen is just because you've now learned logarithms, if you start attempting even a tough logarithm question, that's the problem. Right? So selection, accuracy, and this one. So you need to work on this. Now, how do you improve these things? Yeah. So I hope you've taken a screenshot of this one. Next one. If you haven't taken a screenshot, just take a screenshot. Your preparation on these lines. Selection is the biggest problem. If your problem is selection, then you will also have an issue with time management. If say selection is an issue, you'll also definitely have this thing and the time management for sure. And scores can be very, very inconsistent. So it can be that on one test your scores are up, the next test your scores are down. That one of the reasons, I'm not saying the only reason, one of the reasons can be poor selection. Right? I have covered, and along with Vinayak sir for QA, we have covered every selection thing in detail. All the questions that you might get on selection also, but this one, but that one, but this one, including time management strategies, we've covered in that. So if you have not seen the last mile to CAT sessions, or you've just gone through it upar say because you didn't attend the live session, and watching a 2-hour recording or a 3-hour recording is pretty tiring. So you still have to watch that. There is nothing more, and all sorts of queries have been covered in the Q&A. There is nothing that I will cover today, or there is nothing that I can cover today, or a doubt today, or why not this, why that, everything has been covered. Master selection by solving section tests and take-home tests. How do you get better at selection? By taking section tests and how many tests? So never ask me, sir, how many should I solve? How many section tests? How many section tests could you solve? Now, some people, by understanding the selection, some people I've seen figure out that selection process just like this, and in 1 or 2 section tests itself, they're able to figure out. Others take quite a few tests to figure out. So I will not know how quickly you can pick up things. I don't think once selection is clear in 2 or 3 section tests, you should be very, very clear as to how to do this, or maybe 3 or 4 tests. If you're not doing it. So that is the first thing. Watch all the LMTC videos and master selection by solving section tests in this thing. Yeah, take home tests. accuracy. If accuracy is your issue, then the underlying issue is lack of a solid technique or application of the technique. You will have problems with inconsistent scores. Sometimes your scores are good, sometimes your scores are bad. So what do you need to do this for this? Your job is to watch the master classes again, not last mile to cat master classes. Now, you would have learned, say, I've covered every possible thing with respect to RC in terms of, say, so you've seen that I've done, so with for verbal and I've done the entire, say, paragraph to questions approach, the 5 pauses approach. I looked at as much as possible. I've solved, say, SimCat 6. I did the video solutions for that. SimCat 13, I did the video solutions. SimCat 15, I did the video solutions. We did a VA masterclass. So beyond that, there is nothing, unfortunately, that I can tell you. There is no trick. All my tricks are, all my approaches are already out of the bag. Right? Same thing for all the DILR also. I covered stuff in the LMTC in terms of 10 commandments. I actually had a half-an-hour chat with Suneet to tell him as to what he should be covering so that it's in conjunction with what I covered and for the DI master classes. So those 2 master classes are there. And obviously all the quant master classes where all the various applications in across each areas in the 2 number section have been taken. Right? So if accuracy is an issue, it's a technique issue as far as VA, RC and DILR is concerned. And it's a application issue of particular levels of problems as far as quant is concerned. So you have to watch all of this again in terms of figuring out there are no new techniques in terms of looking at this. Read all sectional posts in Cat Writer. So over and above this, so this year I've been doing all of these sessions. Over and above this, my blog on the catwriter.com, you have enough and more that is covered there as well. So there is enough there. So if accuracy is your issue, this is what you should be doing. Master the technique by solving area tests. So, for example, you're still not able to do a jumbled paragraph. If you see, so what you call starter, link, and sequence approach, that sort, link, and sequence, that is the approach that I keep doing. So, is it a starter, is it a follower, this one? So, have you diligently done, say, at least, say, 10 questions to solve that in that format? Right? So, if you're only looking at my solution and directly trying it in the actual test, obviously it will be a problem. So you would have to ensure that you are mastering that technique very, very clearly. Now use the revise feature on my IMS. So revise is a new feature that we've added on the SimCat. In the test module, if you see, we have given, when you click that module called test, on that you will see a tab called revise. So you can revise questions from a section, from an area, and even at a topic, even say TSD questions. So suppose you feel that arithmetic is an issue and you saw the arithmetic masterclass and you covered those things, you have a problem with arithmetic. Somehow you feel confident about arithmetic, but your marks are an issue. So watch the arithmetic masterclasses, look at the technique, and then use the revise feature to look at all my IMS questions, whatever are incorrect questions. That means you took a shot, but something happened there. What happened there, right? So all the incorrect questions, you can also take a shot at the skipped questions. You can also relook at the correct questions that you want. So as I said, you can go down to topic level, not just arithmetic, but time, speed, distance as well. Yeah. Concepts. If your problem is lack of conceptual clarity, you will be stuck with plateauing scores. So after a point, there are areas which you do not know anything about. You do not want to know, maybe because you don't like it, and you have not studied it so far. So what you will see is that your scores are stuck because whatever happens, you're not going to attempt logarithms. Whatever happens, you're not going to attempt PNC. Whatever happens, you're not attempting DI calculation based DI. So how are your marks going to go up? How much are you going to get from the rest? So conceptual clarity, you need to figure this out. So to develop that, watch the concept videos first. That's there in the learn module or any other source that you have to learn concepts. And the master classes next, because if you have no concepts whatsoever in so directly to watch the master classes might seem a bit of an issue. Solve problems from learn module and area tests. So if you have a concept issue, solving problems from learn module and area tests are important. So in case you guys want to, even here, I just thought that if you want to take screenshots, you can take the screenshots here. It just suddenly stuck me. Yeah. So screenshots of this. Screenshots of this. screenshot of this. So learn mod, solve problems from learn module, because you're learning something for the first time, you're doing logarithms, you straight away don't want to jump to try them in the actual test. So wherever, if you don't have learn module, whatever, if you only have say IMS test series and not the learn module, whatever you have of your study material, you can use it. Use the revise feature on IMS to resolve the skipped question. So you've just now studied, logarithms. Right? So you can look at all the questions that you skipped from logarithms only using the revise feature and solve all the skipped questions to see, okay, yeah, actually these questions out of the 10 skipped questions across all SimCAT. So you can revise across all SimCATs. It's not, you don't need to go from SimCAT to SimCAT. So then you might realize that, okay, actually out of these 10 questions, 5 were sitters. I could have easily done 5 questions. So that is something that you can do. Take a screenshot of this one. The other, we spoke about 7 skills, right? So these three skills are absolutely crucial. There are 3 more skills, so 4 more skills, but these are 3 more. Speed. So by speed, I mean the pace with which you read and the pace with which you process things. Now, unfortunately, so some of you, those who say that, sir, 5 pauses approach is taking too much time. I don't have that much time. Uh, I, it's like saying that I need to do this particular what you call thing. There is no way that you cannot do it. But your lack of speed does not mean that that method is slow. It's like you have to execute that. So suppose you're saying that, okay, when you have to turn a car across a corner, you have to ensure that your speed goes down, you're pressing the clutch, you're releasing this thing, and you're turning it over the corner. So you cannot say that if you're racing in a formula, this thing that is taking a lot of time. Can you turn without doing those things? You cannot turn without doing those things. Right? So if somebody else has some other approach, then maybe you can go look at that approach. But speed of doing things is a core skill. Comprehension. When say people say, sir, I tried the 5 pauses approach, but third pause, I cannot make a shadow answer. I can never, form a shadow answer. I cannot help you in that because I do not know how you are processing a sentence, right? I've shown you the techniques across, say, master classes, across LMTCs, across SimCAT solutions in my blog post. So beyond this, when students come back to me and say, I am not able to score this, so your core comprehension, I cannot change, right? So this is another skill that is there in reasoning. So are you able to say, figure out that this is not this? So these 3 skills, so in terms of figuring this out, it's impossible to make a significant jump in these 3 areas in 1 month. Just like it's impossible all of a sudden, can you become a power hitter? Even somebody as good as Virat Kohli cannot become a power hitter all of a sudden, right? Even a good bowler like, say Shami cannot start bowling at an Archer's pace or a Jofra Archer's pace all of a sudden, right? Because you cannot change those things in 1 month. Right? So the speed, comprehension, reasoning are 3 more skills. The reason I'm saying this is that, you need to figure out as to what you might be barking up the wrong tree and trying to do random stuff without maybe figuring out that, what is the distance. So these things, honestly, because sometimes I don't have answers when students have said, I'm not able to frame a shadow answer. I'm like, I do not know what to say in that context because, when you say, I teach the same thing to each and every student, right? So I remember when I was training students also actively on the ground, I would do the same thing for each and every student. Some students would understand that in say 1 or 2 questions and they would execute it. Others would take a few questions. Few other students, they would do a lot of, and they'll keep asking for more and more and more questions. Sir, can you solve more? Can you solve more? Can you solve more? I'm like, I can solve 100. Eventually, you have to solve it yourself. So the methods, what I spoke about, the skills that we covered there, those are absolutely sacrosanct. There is nothing. So at least those are all the master classes and techniques that the best of IMS has. You say others have methods apart from that, and they're very useful, or your teachers, I do not know. But these are the things that I have used during my preparation as well as during my teaching this thing. Yeah. So you might say, sir, but I saw all of this. मैंने सब देख लिया, मैंने देख लिया है, this thing, but what do I do now? So one of the big things is this, precision, regression, reflex. What do I mean by precision, regression, and reflex? perfect execution is the outcome of perfect understanding of what is required. So what happens is, so say suppose I have outlined a method of say the shadow answer or a person or any other this thing, say trying to find out the links between two or labeling method or whatever. Most of the time I found that you would have watched this, but did you genuinely understood the mechanics behind it as to why it is? We can behind the ABC approach, behind the third person. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. So one of the things that I really like is fitness, and I've worked out for regularly for quite a while, and I've seen so many people work out with very few, results per se. You don't see it. So, for example, even a simple thing, if you're doing yoga and your coach tells you or your teacher tells you, now lift your hands up, bend down, hold your toes or put your arms there and try to bend forward as much as possible. Right? So what is most important is that while you're doing that, this thing, the entire bending forward, is for you to feel an absolute stretch on your hamstrings. And if you do it really well, your calves. So if you keep your knees absolutely ramrod straight and you start doing it through that method right from day one, you will start feeling that thing on the hamstring. But most people, sir ne just bola ki aage jhuk jao, and you just want to bend and come up without feeling any pressure on your hamstring. So you're doing what your teacher has told you, or you're doing what you've seen in a video in the asana, but you have never not understood what that is actually for. Or an even simpler this thing, if you've ever lifted a weight, everybody focuses on lifting the weight, which is a positive motion. But the bigger juice in that is to release it absolutely slowly, because that also helps. So most people will do this, but then absolutely straight away go down. They won't resist the weight. So essentially, every time they're doing it, they're only getting half the benefit. Whereas when I do it, I get twice of that benefit because I know that that is very, very important as well. Right? So if you ask me when say my instructor or somebody anywhere, if I'm learning a new, what I ask them is, where should I be feeling the stretch or the pressure? I am not interested in blindly doing something. So ask yourself, have you genuinely understood these methods or have you just watched it? Right? Have you just watched it? So that is a question that, so I know that most of you would have watched it, but maybe not everyone has understood it to the core. Okay, this is why I need to do ABC. They've said it, so I am trying it. I partially understood it. I'm trying it in earnestness. I've partially understood it. I'm not really passionate about it. I'm just trying. So that. Next thing, you understand, but do you always apply it or slide back to your different? But this is another important thing, because what happens is you're used to a particular way of solving so much that you realize that sometimes you realize later when you're solving that you didn't actually follow the process. That you actually, okay, why was I just did it back to my gut feel or back to a usual process. So this also is something that happens where people regress. So that is the regression. I'll give you a simple example. It happens. So even with me, I was talking about weight training, hence I want to give you the weight training example. Once you start lifting weights, like that, you are never supposed to lift anything with your back, right? So if you bend down something, you should not bend, pick it up with your back. You should bend your knees and you should lift it. You should come up with your legs with your back straight. So you're pushing it, you're creating an entire movement from your heels to your calves to your hamstrings and then the back. That is how you lift more weight. And most back injuries happen because people directly bend and lift. Now, I understand this so well. I've been doing this now, quite regularly. But guess what happens in a couple of months, weeks back, I needed to go to Bangalore for a funeral. So I stayed there with my same friend, for a bit. And somebody came to deliver a water can. This water can. He was on a call or something. So the water can, that guy, because he didn't want people to come right into the house, we left it outside. I had to pick it up. And because I didn't tell myself, bend your knees, go down, lift it with your legs, I just bent down and it was right on the floor and I tried to lift it up. And my back actually, wasn't bad, it just got jammed for a while. Right? So the back was jammed for a while. And I had to do some stretching. I was like, I know this, but still, because I didn't talk to myself that this, okay, this is what you do. That this. So next time it came, my friend was like, it's okay, I'll lift it. I was like, no, this is not heavy weight, I will lift it. And I did it properly. It was not a weight at all. So this is an important thing, that even with your best of intentions and you knowing something, you go back sometimes, you slide back to your usual processes. So check that do you actually apply it every single time, or you do regress? And ask yourself, have these methods become a natural reflex for you? Are these your most natural ways of solving, right? Or are they still this thing? So how do they become natural methods? You need to talk to yourself constantly, okay, before the test, before a section, to do this. We'll discuss this later, because this is something absolutely that you started just a few months back. So these things do not become natural automatically. There is nothing automatic in life. You'd have to learn and program and train yourself to do it. So you might have seen it, but ask yourself these three questions, right? So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can, but I don't think there's nothing much to take a screenshot in this particular thing. Right? Now, so we've learned I've showed you now to figure out where your issue is. Is it a selection issue? Is it an accuracy issue? Or is it a concept issue? Right? Now, you figured the problem out. One big thing that I see students with the problem is that they straight away want to say, suppose, sir, I am scoring 40 in take home SIMCAT, right? In the quant section. But in an actual mock, I'm only able to score 20. I don't know why. I don't know why. Now, I do not know. Maybe fear is this thing. We'll deal with that later, right? But finally, what matters is, what are you doing in the 40 minutes of the section, right? It does not matter why you do questions. Well, later I solve. Sir, I always solve later. I'm able to do it. You always solve it later because you've already seen the question. So two reasons for solving it later. Most important reason is you've already seen the question. You know it perfectly well. You do not, also know what does not work. So then when you solve it at home, you'll get it right, obviously. Right? Suppose, no, sir, even brand new questions when I do in a take home mode, I'm able to do, but in exam method, that is a fear thing. We'll discuss that later. So when you have these issues, so now you figure that, okay, I'm not doing the selection process properly, or this thing. When you go to the next exam, you know that your take home is 40, your SIMCAT score is 20, right? In a section, for example. Do not keep your goal as 40. Be modest, understand. So I've seen that because the gap between what you think you can do and what you're actually doing is so huge, every time you go into a test thinking that is bar to main phod dunga, is bar I'm going to bloody, so no. What matters is, don't look at your outside the test performance. Look at only your test performance and set modest goals. Not 60 to 108. So you're scoring 60 overall, straight away next test 108. No. So I'm giving something at a sectional level, wherever you are. So obviously depends on where you are. So if you're scoring 24, don't set a target of 36 right now. Do the right selection. Solve the right questions with good accuracy to just move from 24 to 27. Don't expect this jump. So once you're going to take enough tests, so at least so we have say 4 weeks. You're going to take 3 to 4 tests at least, right? 3 to 4 tests, not more than that a week. So you have 12 to 15 tests. So if you need to reach say 36 or this thing, you have enough jumps to make. You can afford to say take one test as this target. So set modest targets. So those of you who are struggling with scores or struggling with this thing, it is because you have a problem with selection or accuracy or concepts, right? First important problem is selection and accuracy, and more importantly, setting this right target. So if you have not scored more than 20, why to set in a SIMCAT, in an actual proctored SIMCAT, right? In a test taking condition, don't set yourself a goal of 36. Set yourself a goal that, okay, my task in the next 45 minutes is to do exceptionally good selection, attempt only 12 questions, and solve with great accuracy, get 9 questions right, and get 24. I've seen 40 in a proctored, in a take-home test, but I've not seen even a 24 in a proctored SIMCAT. So my first goal is modest goal. Can I control my 40 minutes and with very, very judicious shot selection and accurate play, can I score 24? So you need to prove to yourself that you can score 24 first, right? Then let's score 24. Can I score 27? Can I score 30? Go that way. Because what happens when you directly take a swing based on your performance outside is that you set yourself very, very unrealistic goals. Right? So I've kept it at a sectional level because for some it can be sectional. So each section will add up. So you can be at a 30 in quant, you can be at a 21 in verbal, and you can be at a 27 in this thing. Right? So you know what is, so obviously this will tie in with your speed as well as your comprehension and everything else. Right? So I hope this is absolutely clear. So take a screenshot of this. Set modest goals, not crazy jump. Don't focus on your non-outside test results. We'll deal with the fear thing. But in test, even if say after looking at the fear you're going in, start with simple, clear goals, especially if you're scoring very, very low. Right? That. So take a screenshot of this if you require this. How many tests do I take? Some general questions now. Everyone needs to take 3 to 4 tests a week. We have 4 weeks right now. Today is 1st of November. The cat is on 29th of November. You can take about 4 tests, 3 to 4 tests. So not more than that. 1 test every single day will be crazy. And also 1 test every day right towards the end will also be crazy because then you can't space it out. So don't think that first I'll finish all the syllabus and then last 2 weeks I'll take 15 tests. That can be very tiring as well. So the best thing can be a test every alternate day. That is the way I'd want to look at it. If you feel you have now, obviously this is you. If you have work, you have office, you can only work on the weekends. You have college, but that you have to do. I'm just giving you a suggestion as to how many in a week, right? So that's what you need to look at. Should I revise concepts? Should I spend any time revising concepts? You either know concept. What is revising a concept? Right? Why do you need? You either know. Do you revise how to brush your teeth? आज मैं थोड़ा दांत कैसे brush करना है मैं revise कर लेता हूँ. You are talking about going and applying say midpoint theorem or applying say coordinate geometry a particular this thing. So if you either know it at this stage today I ask you, you either know that concept or not. Right? So revising and constantly having to memorize because you either know it completely, it's not a memory game anymore. So if you feel that you want to keep remembering things, you keep forgetting things, that means you do not know things. So you do not genuinely know things. So that's all I have to say on this. The revise button, if you see that given the name revise, that's because it's easy to understand for everyone. It is more to say for you to resolve questions or get more juice out of the SimCat or skip questions, incorrect questions. So you either know concepts or you don't. It's as simple as that. If I wake you up in the night and say, what is this? Do you know this? If you know it, you know it. Otherwise, you don't know. So let me be very, very clear. How do I build test-taking stamina? All practice sessions should be at least 2 hours at a stretch. So minimum test is 2 hours. No practice session should be less than 2 hours and without a break. And you should not have your phone or this or that, anything else close to you. So obviously, if I need to tell you right now that your practice sessions have to be distraction free, then I don't need to. So everyone should take 2 tests back to back at least once. Okay. But this is a very, very important thing. At least once, 2 tests back to back. Why? Now, you know that you have 3 slots in a day, right? For CAT. So morning slot is 8:30, afternoon slot is test is 2 hours. They ask you to reach about 1 hour before, right? And the test 1.5 hour before, and the test center can be close to your place or it can be half an hour from your place. That's the one. Technically, if you ask me, you will be leaving home close to 4 hours before the test. Right? So in your home, you'll reach the quant section exactly at the end of 80 minutes. In the actual exam, right, you might be reaching the quant section at the end of 2 hours and 80 minutes. Is there a difference when you're approaching the quant section at the end of 80 minutes and the end of 2 hours, 80 minutes? Yes, there is a huge difference. Do you think you can actually solve when you are tired? So this is and that is one factor, that the actual time duration that you will spend. And sometimes it can be that just fatigue. If you ask me, there is nothing more boring and more tiring than just sitting maybe in a cab when you're traveling, or in an auto when you're traveling to that center which is far off, or you are just waiting in that line and you can be absolutely fried. That is also very, very tiring, right? It's just say low intensity battery draining. Another thing is, in the exam, you can take this from me in writing, everything will seem 20% tougher on test day. This has happened to me as well. Right? I was the first time I took a GMAT, this thing I remember I was solving a question, and for some reason it was a trapezium question. I still remember it. I was just not able to get the answer, and I was trying it, I was not able to get the answer, and my right leg started shaking. It just started shaking. And I just said, okay, I'm not going to waste my entire test over one question and try to resolve this again. I marked some answer and went ahead, and I got a decent score. It's fine. That was it. But when I sat in the auto to get back home, that is when I realized, oh shit, that was such a silly question. There was nothing in that question. Why did I this thing? So sometimes it can happen. It doesn't happen with every question. Sometimes it can happen that during that everything seemed 20% harder. If everything seems 20% harder, it will mean that your battery will drain that much more during test taking conditions. That is absolutely going to happen. As I said, that was what the example I gave you was the first time that I took the GMAT. The second time that I took the GMAT, and that time I was only preparing for the GMAT. I had a very first time was very, very free, absolutely not too much of work, a lot of mental energy. The second time when I was preparing, I was working, I was handling IMS Pune, I was teaching, I was managing the business, and I was taking, and I went to take the test. After the test, you won't believe, I literally felt that I was a bit, was so drained. And I called somebody and I was speaking as if it was Thursday while it was Friday. I missed the date. My brain just, all the energy got sucked out of me during those, 2 hours of, three and a half hours of test taking. So once during the season, you should take without a break 2 tests to see can you perform even when you are tired, even when there is very little this thing. Can you concentrate and squeeze every drop, and in that last half an hour, do you fade away? Do you fade away in that last half an hour with respect to it? One of the big reasons for Djokovic's success is he does not fade away right even towards the end, or even Nadal for that matter. They just don't fade away in that last. So you need to figure this out, that maybe at home you don't want to be caught with this surprise before, at this thing. And that is a core stamina that you need. For example, the Australian summer that is coming up now, that's Indian Tour of Australia. The Australian summer is supposed to be very, very hot. Australia might not seem as hot as India, but because of the direction, that is why they wear that white cream on their face, so that the skin does not get into blisters. So to prepare for the Australian summer, Matthew Hayden used to tie weights around his legs and go up the mountain and down. He used to run up the mountain. Why? Because he knew that if he needs to open and bat for the entire day, then he would need to bear the heat for that. So you should do this at least once, building test taking stamina. That is an absolute, because you should not lose for lack of stamina. Yeah, so I can continue giving a lot of examples with sport where people have done the things to simulate painful physical conditions so that they can perform in that particular. Yeah. So take a screenshot of this if you'd want to. What to do between 2 tests? Now I have given you the recipes. I have taught everything I can. So between 2 tests, how many? I have a lot of times students say, "Sir, my VI accuracy is bad. This thing. What should I do in 3 days?" So if this was that sort of a situation, I told you before, it completely depends on how many sections, how much each person needs. I've given you all the recipes and I've given you the entire thing. You have to do the cooking. I've told you how many tests to take. Between these 2 tests, exactly each one of you has a different problem and a different thing. You need to figure that. That is completely something that you'd have to do. because you cannot expect that you want a great percentile, you want to get into an MBA, you want to become a manager later, but you cannot do this resource management where you are the person at the center, right? So I cannot give a generic plan because it won't work. Even if you tell me, for that matter, so this is my exact thing, I still cannot give you a plan because I do not know what you do when you solve a question, right? So you would have to figure things out for yourself. Between the tests, it's your plan. You have to make that plan. If you cannot do that, you cannot crack the test. If you cannot make a test prep plan for yourself, because understand, this is not a stupid college exam, or this is not any other exam where it tilts that you've had so far, where everything is standard. Sabko, it's not like I give some patti padha and everybody will go and do it. So if you cannot make a plan out of everything that we've discussed so far, then genuinely that reasoning ability is missing. How to manage work, college exams, a lot of people have all of this. And I do not know. I do not have answers to these questions. I can tell you in the end as to how your day should be. That might help you manage, but I cannot tell you how to manage because I do not know your life. I do not know your boss. I do not know how much time you take to understand something. Right? So you might be one person might just look at the college book for some time and understand everything. Other person needs a lot of time. So there is nothing called average. On average, sir, there is nothing called average, because on average works only if you are exactly on the average. But average is nothing but a mixture of all values. So that's why I don't like to give any of these, this thing. So I do not know. But I'll give you in the end a small, a primer as to what you should be spending your time. Yeah? The test. This seems to be like, for most people. Yesterday I got a query of a student saying, so in one test, this thing, you guys have said that 108 is the cutoff for 99. In this much is the cutoff for 99. In that much is the cutoff for 99. Please understand, no two CAT slots are also the same. So if anybody tells you that 118 exactly is this thing, it might or might not happen the next year, right? Even for the very best, because the paper changes between slot 1 and slot 2. When we did the LMTC sessions, you guys yourself said, sir, it was not fair. Verbal slot 2 was tougher than verbal slot 1. So DILR also slot 2 was tougher than slot 1. So how can there be a score? Because one tougher passage can mean a difference of 10 marks. That is why they do the scaling, right? That is why they do the scaling. So I can only give you broad guidelines. So broad guidelines like this, I feel, will say 72 score will get you 85. Now, and also I've said this repeatedly. In the SimCAT, for that same score, you might get a lower percentile simply because SimCATs are taken by the very best and most serious students who are taking the test, right? So because of that, your SimCAT scores will always be low. I have covered this on my blog as well, and I've covered this 10 minutes. So the last time I'm saying, take your SimCAT percentile, whatever you had, and if it's 9, and so you look at the gap from 100, divide it by 2 and add it to your current percentile, that will be your CAT percentile. SimCAT percentile 80, gap from 100 is 20, 20 by 2 is 10, your current percentile is 90. If your current percentile is 85, then on the SimCAT, the gap is 15, 7.5, 92.5. Current percentile is 90, 95, 95, 97. That is what. So that also means another thing. That means that if you got a 99 at this particular score, that means that in the actual test, 99 will also happen at the same score. Because I'm saying that on the actual test, the same score will get you higher percentile. That means it also means that at a particular percentile will also go lower on the actual test. So just understand that. So 70, these are, I said tentative because of that. Because if you take this particular number in this thing. So this is, if you want to take a screenshot this thing, but this is just a tentative thing. So the student asked me, sir, I want to target more. Is it 108 or 109? I'm not able to target it better. Now I found that absolutely all of you are people who are educated, people who are working this thing. So in terms of if you ask me how many questions, so if you want to take a screenshot, take this. Yeah. Now, how many questions should I attempt? Think about it. Each simple answer, as many as you can, right? It's just as many as you can, because I never get it, because it's almost as if when the student says, sir, is it 108 or 114? I target accordingly. So that means if I tell you it is 114, you will push harder. If I tell you it's 180, it's almost as if the way students ask me the question, I feel as if ye nimbu hai. Sir, you tell me how much to squeeze it, I will squeeze that much. It doesn't work like that. No, you squeeze out every single drop that you can every single time, right? Suppose, because you look at it from a cricket match perspective also. The previous match they said the average score is 140. Does it mean that every time exactly at 140 you will stop playing? Right? So this is not a chase. Remember, cat is not a chase. It's a you're batting first. You're batting first with everybody else. Everybody is getting bowled the same balls but in random order. That is what that is why I feel the cat is so close to the so close to cricket. You have 100 balls or whatever 60 balls or 70 balls that are bowled at you. Everybody gets bowled the same balls in a random order. Whoever scores the maximum or the top 1 percentile, what your score will fall into a particular percentile, right? So can you go in thinking that this is the score that will get, because completely depends upon the ball that is getting bowled, right? On that particular day, that particular slot. Suppose I tell you that so you go and saying that Acha, 120 is perfect, right? And you start and you're doing very, very well and you score 120. What happens? Everybody else also has found it easy and they'll easily go and score that 120. You are doing it comfortably. As long as it is a test, and just look at the other way around. You are going in, you think it is, it is going to be super, but it's very tough. You're going in for a 120, but somehow 120 is not happening. It's only in 90. You can still get a good percentile, right? I give you a number, you go in trying to hit that number, and if that number does not happen because the paper is difficult, then you will screw up your paper. I give you a number, you think that, okay, this number is happening, the paper is easy, you don't push, you will still get a lower percent. Right? You've seen that on the SimCats as well. So your job is to just go out there and score as many as you can. There is nothing that should be left in the tank. And in your head, you should know that if you are feeling good, everybody else is feeling good. If you are feeling bad, you will all during a test, you will always be challenged. It is not a test if you are not feeling challenged. If you are not feeling challenged, that essentially either you are at a level where you're already scoring a 99.99 or 100, it's not a challenge for you. Right? Or you've understood it wrong. It's easy, everybody. So you're solving it at a very comfortable pace. You might not get the same percentile. So that is what can happen. Even say, my colleagues who score hundreds very, very consistently, do you think they get the same score for every 100? No. In 100, they have a 100 with 254. Another 100 is at 284. Does that mean that they did better in one test and poorly in another test? No, absolutely not. It is purely that the paper got difficult or the paper got easy. So how many questions should I attempt is absolutely, I feel, on test day. So all of these numbers that we gave, the target that I gave for this thing is just for you to execute your processes well, right? But on the actual day, you are just trying to solve as many questions as you can. You always try to set the toughest target. Cricket fans will know when, say, South Africa chased down that crazy score that Australia made. The first time, I think some 418, 420, or forget the number. Important part of that story is that when Australia, at the lunch break, Jacques Kallis apparently said that I think Australia scored about 420, 430. Jacques Kallis said, the first thing Jacques Kallis said was, they scored 20 runs too less. That was his reaction. They scored 20 runs too less. They could have gotten more. Right? So we've seen that in the IPL as well, right? Not that's also. So as many questions as you can to keep this thing simple. But before all of this, before you conquer the cat, and to do all of this, the biggest thing that you should conquer, the seventh skill, fearlessness. So unless you conquer your fear, all of this can just be words with absolutely not too much of meaning, right? So what is very, very important is this conquering of fear has to, happen. So if we look at this particular thing, so this is the whole part of test taking and how will we, get it. So the other part is there, but in terms of what do you do in terms of tests? So how do you ensure that you perform well each and every time? If you've been diagnosed with anxiety or any other clinical condition, nothing I say applies. You have to consult a professional. So if you have some serious medical, mental health issues, then obviously I am not the person, to this thing. That is a separate thing. I only know about mild fears or this thing or tension due to tests. You have tension only in a test, I can help you. If you have tension in general in life and crazy tension which makes your functioning very, very difficult, I am not the person. Fear stems from thinking about outcomes. So I always try to look at where does this fear comes from? The fear comes from your attention moving from the actual test to thinking, what will happen if I don't get? What will happen if I don't get? Right. So the first thing is fear is very natural, even I feel it. So the second time that I took the GMAT 2017, I was not paying for it. IMS was paying for it because it is part of the GMAT official body doing something, and it is a different thing altogether. So I had to, they paid for the test. So I still remember I'm driving to the test center in Pune, and in my mind I'm having that butterflies in the tummy sort of this thing. I was thinking, what if I don't get the same score like last time? I got a 750 last time. What if, I just blank out? Or what if I don't answer it well and I don't get 750? What will people in the office think? Because they, the office is, paying the money. Everybody, a lot of people know that I'm taking the test. What will they think? Right? They'll think, oh, he's grown old. He's no longer as good as he was. So all of these things were going in my head just for a brief. Then immediately I just switched that thing off and went back to what do you teach your students? How to solve sentence correction questions? You solve sentence correction questions in this way, right? You look to the left, look to the right, try to find the clue to the non-unrelated clue. Always remember that the clue lies here. So I talked myself through the process during that whole. So I shifted my attention from thinking about the outcome, because I was very, very clear. If I execute the processes, then the outcome, a great score is an outcome of me executing this process as well. So I'll keep my attention on the process. So shift your attention constantly from the outcomes to the process. I'm talking about from absolutely personal experience. Right? So everybody, but obviously, was it this? So different people have different levels of fear. So to feel some fear is natural. Right? If you don't feel fear, that means, like my friend, you don't care at all. So if you're at that space, absolutely great. But otherwise, if you care, you just do feel a bit of this. Again, another instance of fear stemming from outcome. So I was training a student for GMAT, and she did the regular training and everything. This was back in the day when I was teaching in Chennai, and it was back in the day when I was teaching. So this one, she finished her classes, she started taking mocks, and then she came to me for some one-on-one help. So I was like, I could sense that she was very, very hyper, very, very hyper, very, very, tightly wound. And I felt that, and I told her in a very nice way that, you see, this in a test will be absolute mayhem. It will be like a bull in a china shop. You'll just destroy everything. You won't get it. You need to be calmer. So she was somebody who was already 27, 20 years, 8 years old. She was very, very successful in what she was doing in her job. She was in sales, and she was very, very aggressive. She could do that pretty well. So because sometimes when people work in sales, and they're not just sales, when they work and they're successful and they're driven people, they can forget the context. And so she was like, sir, it's very, very easy. And she got a bit aggressive. She's like, it's very, very easy, sir, for you to talk about all of this, because for you it does not matter. If I do not crack this test, I will, my parents will marry me off. I'm 27 years old, and they will say there is no other shot. If I do this test well, I get a chance to leave, maybe to leave the country, work for 2 years, and also say build my life outside of this, whatever, this thing my parents have plans for. So it's very, very easy for you to talk about all of this, but it's very, very tough. So please do not, say that. So I just, so normally when say the other person gets, very, very this thing. So when my Baba mode or monk, I took all of it and I said, my first line that came to me was, the question does not care. The question does not care about your marriage. The question does not care about your parents. The question And solving of that question has nothing to do with all the baggage. So there is nothing between you and the question. When I said that, what I spoke about in the story right at the beginning, don't take all of your mental baggage and park it right between you and the question, because this is another way of thinking about outcomes and everything. So this has to be a mantra. Question does not care. Fear of the timer. This is another this thing. I keep hearing it's I keep looking at the timer. I keep looking at the timer. This thing. So I mostly know that I keep talking about Sudoku a lot and everything, and I've realized that when I actually solve the Sudoku and I hit my best times, that's happened when I have not looked at the clock at all and I've just been so immersed in solving that it comes across that I've beaten the world record. I do not know or my own personal record. So even when say Usain Bolt is running, he's not looking at he's already ran his best. So timer, by now you can forget about the timer, specifically in terms of because you don't need to constantly keep looking at it. If you are completely not wasting any time while solving that question, right? Because that timer is also something between you and me. So stop looking at the timer and focusing on the focus on the solving. You don't lose anything, right? For one entire, let your internal timer do the job. For say take a section test. Don't bother. Does it mean you solve as if there is no time? No, you are solving it so you are completely not wasting any what you call wasted motions. You are doing it at your best pace, but you are not constantly looking there. Try it. Absolutely try it, Madhya. So to talk about this fear of the timer and performance, under this thing. So let your internal language. So I would absolutely know, this thing. So just to try it out on a few simcats, you will see that it's about you being engaged there, perfect. You're doing very good selection. You're solving at the right pace. All of those things. So for this fear, do what Josh Butler did. I came to I wanted to do a bit of because I wanted to do a bit of research on him because I was watching him bat and he seems like what I also thought seems like an anomaly, like a cricketing freak, as if he just comes in and he starts hitting the ball, does not seem to have any nerves whatsoever. Even if he gets out, he doesn't feel to this thing. And when I saw some of the crazy innings that he's played so far, I'm like, this guy is like an absolute different species altogether. And Viv Richards himself said that he finds that his style of play is very, very similar. But was he made this way? Right? People think that everybody is natural. He also seems like an absolute, what do you call, machine, so to say. But was he made this way? Let's look at the small story because of this. As usual, all these guys, promising teenagers, record-breaking partnership you see in cricket every time you see that all youngsters, right from Tendulkar, Kamble to everybody else, they have this with another guy, a big partnership. So he also had that, it is almost as if it's like a rite of passage, just like an airport climax in a classic rom-com. Like a cricket player needs to have that partnership but at a young age with somebody that breaks some school record. So Wisden Young Cricketer of the Year 2010, England team regular by 2012. Right? Everything seemed absolutely perfect. What's the catch? He was getting starts but getting out. So he was in the regular in the team and he was getting starts but getting out. The results were not backing up the talent, scared that he was burning out. He felt that I've been now playing cricket for so much time in my life. Right? I'm getting into the team. I'm getting a start, but I'm getting out. And eventually somebody will figure that, okay, for all of the talent, the results are not showing. Right? So it's like, what's happening? What should I do? So what happened was, he actually, the match got rained out. A particular match got rained out, and whoever was the sports psychologist of the team, Butler and he, because of the rain, they were sitting in the hotel room and they started discussing. Right? So what did that sports psychologist tell him? The sports psychologist discussed this. This is called the inverted U theory, right? And there have been a lot of studies on this and everything. So what they speak about is that for you to perform at your best, you cannot perform if under very low pressure or boredom. So for my friend, for example, who went and just casually took the GMAT mock and got 760 or even the CAT test, suppose those tests were way below his level, even then he will not perform well. So if something is way too easy for you and there is no pressure, you won't actually perform well. Suppose what happens is, so boredom and no pressure, And so the sweet spot, and suppose say the high stress, you're extremely, high pressure and you're under anxiety. So even then it won't function. Just say that it has to happen when your best performance happens somewhere when it is not as if it's low pressure, it's not way too easy, and it's not way too tough that it's causing you anxiety. Your best performance always happens in this peak period in the middle where it's not too easy for you. It's challenging enough for you, but it's not so overwhelming that you get psyched out. So what Josh Butler felt that this part, for this part, he was here in this high stress and anxiety. That was what was spoiling everything for him. Instead of being here, the stress and anxiety was the one that was an issue. So he felt that, was it very easy for him? No, it was not very easy for him. It was a good challenge that was there. And could he perform? Did he have this thing? Yes. But it was the stress and anxiety. It's entirely what we're talking about, fear and anxiety, that was this thing. So what did they do because of this? The sports of his name is Mark Borden, I think, and Butler came up with a mindset. So I'm not going to say it loud on camera, but this is the mindset. Just like absolutely screw it, let me just go out there. Let me just go, because I felt that he was too, anxious. He was taking too much load. So what I meant by forget the timer over this thing. So what did Butler do? Usually until then, he used to follow this thing of go in, get your eye in, settle down, and then this thing. He just went in and hit the second ball for 6. And he said he never felt better in life. He never felt better in life because he just, it just was a way for him to release his fear. Right? So as I said, when releasing the timer, this is what he just went in and hit the second ball. It absolutely felt great. Right? Do you think problem got solved after that? Not really. He got dropped from the test stream because he was not able to adapt his game to the test this thing. And this was by 2015, and Jeff Boycott had said that he just looks like a shadow of a guy. He doesn't know how to play test cricket. Then what he realized was all of this news, when he got dropped in the test team, all of this was there in the newspaper for a while, for 1 or 2 days, and people are talking about it. But then after a few days, people didn't bother about it. And then he realized that, okay, people forgot about me in a couple of days. So essentially, it does not matter. And it was like a huge load just went off as this thing. Nobody even bothered about me anymore. And then he went back and he hit the fastest 100, by an English international. 46 balls, he knocked off 100. Right? So that's what he did. And this is more important. What did he do after that? He actually wrote down on his bat handle, he scrawled this thing down. He has that scroll so that every time he goes in, every time he's batting, when he lifts his bat, he looks at it. He looks at it because he wants to do this thing. So you do understand that it is not as if everybody is born and made this way. Right? So if you have everything else, so don't realize that this does not mean that next test you go back to you're scoring 60, I'll score 108. No, that's not what I mean. This is purely from that fear, this thing to say, screw it, I'm going to do this thing. So if the timer is an issue or whatever. So this is again not a fake story. This is a true story. So everybody faces this pressure. Everybody is there. It's just about maybe how you look at it. Maybe you should just screw it and go ahead and do it. So as I said, for me, I don't see it. I don't see a difference in state. For me, match or test is not a different state from prep for me, or learning or knowing. Everything is part of that existence of me and the question. Learning is me and the question. Practicing is me and the question. Solving is me and the question. Right? So he said that after this, it just became normal and it just goes in and completely, does what he needs to do. Right? Which is why if you see, even say earlier, before, there were no sports psychologists and everybody else. So people used to say that I just told the boys to go ahead and perform and enjoy themselves. That's what, they used to say. Right? That's another way of saying don't, take too much load. So I think this is a repetition. Every sportsman who performs at an elite level does mental conditioning with the help of a sports psychologist. So it's not as if all of those people are automatically going and performing at that level. Right? Roger Federer had major anger issues that he overcame. Right? So, and this thing, if you look at what do you call this Polish teenager, She won the French Open. She's 19 and she already has a psychologist in her camp. And she was telling everybody that please don't think of a psychologist as somebody who's weak. If you're weak, you need a psychologist. Like, no, you need a psychologist irrespective of whether you're weak or strong, because a lot of part about is mental conditioning. I'm looking at the IPL and I'm seeing these young players do so well because now everybody has a mental conditioning coach there. The other day, and because I like to understand what's happening behind this whole thing. Right? So Suryakumar Yadav scored a crazily good knock the other day. I really loved the way he played. And later after the match, he said that he did a lot of meditation to calm himself down. Right? Manish Pandey in that this thing when he scored this thing in the post match this thing he said, I need to, because I was really surprised that compared only earlier only a few elite players were doing it well who had natural this thing. But now it seems like even youngsters are coming in and doing very, very well, and they don't seem to have any pressure. So what Manish Pandey said also, I was like, there was a lot of chatter in my head. I just shut it out and I just focused on maintaining my shape as as a batsman, following the arc of my bat, and I just focused on that, and that's why I did well. Right? So right now, if you see compared to before, more than natural talent, everybody's doing it. Right? But now, can you have a personal psychologist? Can you have it's way too much. But we can learn from all of this. We cannot afford all of this, and but we can definitely learn from all of this. So, what I want you to do is over the next 1 month, right? Be what condition yourself. When I said to reprogram your brain, I want you to do a few things, right? So more importantly, I think one before, so that mental conditioning, more importantly, before that sports psychologist and everything, there is one simple statistic, that I want you to, look at. One other way of, for me, fear. All of you talk about, fear, exam fear, this, whoever 50% of the people are talking about, understand that millions do not even have a shot at life, especially in a absolutely poor country like India. Millions do not even have a shot at life. Forget a shot at the cat. Sometimes you see these say, because they don't have a shot. You see people standing on the road just waiting. I used to see, not right now because of the lockdown, it's different. But earlier, I used to always see the migrant workers on the corner. They used to be standing there just hoping that somebody picks them up for some labor job for the day so that they can do a great job. A lot of people don't even have a chance to perform. The fact that you're taking the cat itself, that you have the privilege, yes, it is a privilege. You might think it's not a privilege, it is a privilege. That itself, only out of 90 lakh youth, only 2.25 lakh even aspire to it. They feel that they can do a post graduation, and that too in a management, and then get a good salary. Right? So, so that is like a complete. So understand that all the fear and all of that is there, but you have a chance, whereas millions do not even have a chance. So make the most of the chance that you have. That's another way of looking at it, or rather, that's the way I look at it. You have a chance, whereas many other of the others don't. So I do not know what works for each one of you. Each one is very, very different. I can only bring you the diverse perspectives that are there that I know of into dealing with this. Everything that I say might not be applicable to every single person. Right? So I had a student who, whenever he came to me for the GDPI only, and he said he had, last year he had a cat call, but he could not go. I was like, what happened? Why didn't you go for the interview? He's like, sir, I come from a very, very poor background. My parents are agriculture, small time agriculture, this thing who roll BDs. So in the Chennai floods, everything went away. So we stay in a very, very susceptible area. Everything went away. So forget even going for a interview. We lost our house. So I had to go back to the village. So there was no way with my parents. So there was no way I could actually go for the interview. So this year I'm taking it again. So I've met students also among these students who take it over horrible. So I'm not saying that every story should inspire everyone. That will be, uh, you you need to find the right frame of mind for yourself using all of this. What you can do, what you have to. Why do I say you have to go into monk mode? Why monk mode? Whenever about working out and everything, people say beast mode, right? So beast mode is this thing. Now, test taking is very, very different from a physical activity. Suppose in a physical activity, going into that beast mode or pumping yourself up completely is very, very important, because when you get absolutely pumped up, you're willing to say, maybe you'll throw that ball harder if you're pumped up psychologically, and in that say absolutely it's a lot of psychic energy. And when you have that crazy psychic energy, you throw yourself at the boundary and stop that. You will throw the ball at it with a query, this thing, your commitment, everything is a different this thing, because in the field, that huge physical energy makes a difference. Which is why some of the odd times, some of the Pakistan teams and Bangladesh, Pakistan does a crazily good job at times and causes upsets, because whenever they bring sometimes this crazy passion to the field, all of our process will go out of the window, because that crazy passion will always end up trumping, out trumping process in a particular way. But so because in a sport that is required, but in a test you can't get pumped up. You can't get pumped up, because all of that psychic energy will come crashing into a test, right? So do you need physical energy and a lot of this thing, or do you need to be very, very one pointed with a lot? You need that laser to go deeper than it has gone before, right? So if our concentration is a laser that goes in, going to monk mode is that, right? And it happens even for me. Even for me, going into monk mode would mean that I'm able to concentrate that much more harder, and my it goes that much that much more deeper. My first understanding of a question goes that much more deeper. So it's not beast mode because it's a monk mode, because it's a completely mental exercise. It is not. So all the motivation which say pumps you up might actually be only for you to become disciplined and maybe put in the effort. But finally, it is a monk mode and not a beast mode. That is because what is required for tests is absolutely a super top, not a super excitable one. Yeah. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll be excited, you'll go in all pumped up. First question, you're like, man, I'm going to bloody destroy this question. And suppose for some reason all of it is too much mental energy anyway. And so it's like an energy in like a block going in. You're not able to solve it. Next question, something happens, and you'll come crashing down very, very quickly. So how do you go into monk mode? How do you make everything that we discussed today as part of the thing? Start your day with breathing exercises and meditation. As I said, every single player, right? Every single batsman. Earlier they used to do it differently by just putting in music so that they're listening to music. Tendulkar always used to listen to music because that it's cutting everything down. This student, that young 19-year-old Polish girl who won the French Open, she said that she meditates, regularly. Surya Kumar Yadav, somebody at his level, he's also, everybody does it. Ayrton Senna, the F1 champ, he used to do it. So if all of them can do it, you should also do it. So start your day with breathing exercises and meditation. You're talking about, say, having a heavy work day, having we think the answer is with, say, some logical reasoning thing that I am going to study in the morning, study. What about the amount of mental energy that you have? So those of you who have not yet watched it, there is a how to manage your energy, stress, and anxiety. I took a webinar way back, say 3 months back almost. So you can go to the IMS India YouTube channel and take a look at that. So if you haven't seen it, take a look at that. But you have to start your day, because that is actually what gives you a lot of energy. Okay? Second thing is control your speech. Monks do not talk a lot, right? So controlling your speech is very, very important, because talking a lot also wastes a lot of your energy. You don't realize it, but I find myself absolutely flat and tired after the sessions, more than, because in a regular class, at least you're interacting with people. If it's a large audience, I have a mic, right? So it's very, very tiring. And it also, when you want to control your speech, to automatically control your thoughts as well. Right? So it can be with your friends, it can be at home. I want you to do that. Right? And just it's like occupy the smallest space possible mentally, and this thing will just become very, very one pointed. From spreading out, you're completely becoming as one pointed as possible. Control the quantity and quality of your diet. Now, this is very, very important, because if suppose say you plan to take a test at night, right, and you eat quite a bit, then you won't be able to function, because the body, when it is actually digesting food, it cannot function in those systems. So I would say that ensure that you're not eating a lot, but say smaller portions in light amount in this thing. Don't eat till you're full, because the brain then needs a lot of time to exit this thing. So which is why I say, even if I'm taking a session, any of the sessions, for what all sessions that I've taken for you, either I've eaten my meal very way before, and I don't eat, because I just want to ensure that the gap is there. All I'm saying is that the gap is there, and and don't eat crap, and don't eat a lot of it. Yeah. So that this is maybe the most important thing. Every single time, the way we show our commitment to something is not when we do something, but in terms of how we approach that and the things around it. Right? So sit in front of your computer consciously 7 to 10 minutes before the scheduled start of every test. Right? So this is what. So sit in front of your computer before that. So ensure that the first thing is you're not just coming in and directly starting the test. Right? You need to replicate what is going to happen on test day, and you also need to go into that frame of mind to take a test. Most of the time, people are so psyched, one more test, let me go. They're too excited. So it just makes a lot of sense for you to calm that excitement down. Yeah? So calm that excitement down 7 to 10 minutes. What do you do when you sit there? Take 20 super deep breaths. Now, this deep breaths, what they do is psychologically they tamp down the excitement. So it's a physiological thing. So take 20 super deep breaths. You do a count. You do a count till 200. So count whatever it is. How you take 20 super deep breaths, so that you're just oxygenating yourself, quite a bit, and just there. So you don't want the excitement to go, crashing in. So this is very important. So I know some of you would want to sing. I'll just keep the screenshots here. Take a screenshot if you want to. So what I want you to do is create this ritual before a test, right? You're 7 to 10 minutes before, taking some 20 very, very deep breaths. So we start with this. Then talk yourself through the plan for the test. This is maybe the most important thing. Nothing will happen naturally. So tell yourself, okay, I need to score in the verbal section, I need to score 24. Tell yourself that, because it is something does not become naturally just because you read it somewhere. In the verbal section, I'm going to select this. I'm going to exactly do this. This is my time management strategy. So talk yourself and program yourself to do that. So that is very, very important in terms of programming yourself to do something. So what is the selection? What is the technique? Okay, when I look at the jumble paragraph, I'm going to look at the sort link this thing, sort linking this. If you see in sport, during a sports match, also people keep talking. A player keeps talking to himself or herself in terms of what needs to be done. So ensure that this whole process is there. Even in a cricket match, for example, the two players talk to each other also, so just so that they're doing things right. So even if you look at, say, a test match or in any this thing, a batsman, what does he do? Do they practice hitting sixes, or do they practice always playing straight? They always practice playing straight, because they just want to ensure that their body is, or their hand develops the reflex of putting up the bat coming straight down. So talk yourself exactly to your plan for this test before. So 20 deep breaths, 7 to 10 minutes before the test, 20 deep breaths, talk yourself through the plan. And then this is one thing that I usually do. So during the course of a season, I'll have some favorite problems. These can be favorite problems because there was a good shortcut to it that somebody else taught, and I really like the logical this thing of it, especially math problems. Or I might, it might be a problem that I solved very well that I like, right? So what I do is I turn that over in my head. I got some problem must house me. So I usually have a collection of 4 to 5 problems that I keep recycling. Okay, this happened, just so that I'm mentally putting myself in that mode. I'm not putting any stress on myself. If you see in all of these processes, I'm not putting any stress. If you try to memorize something or recollect formulas, you're putting stress. That is stress, and that is counterproductive. Here, I'm taking deep breaths, oxygenating myself. I am talking to myself, hence programming what I should do, and I'm mentally resolving my favorite problems. So this is something that you should do. And quant problems, because anyway can't do, you take RC problems, you can't do in a DILR sets, you should be doing this. After the test, do not become emotional. Do not become emotional about, oh my God, as I said, remember I told you that I never get sad or down because of not doing well. I get angry at times if I don't do well. but I don't get sad because I feel it's a very weird this thing. Why to feel sad? What is sadness or emotion? Your emotion has nothing to do with it, right? So where are your emotions coming in from, and motivation and demotivation? You did something you did worked, so dispassionately analyze what went wrong. Was it a selection issue? Was it an accuracy issue? Was it a concept issue? You need to put your this thing down. So there were the questions and this thing. And do not forget that the question does not care. So when I say monk mode for the next 30 days, am I assuming that to prepare you? Think that you are not going. Don't think that you're going to not have a single dip, but ensure that even if a dip happens, you are mentally strong enough to deal with it as to what happened there and what happened other than anything else. Yeah. So that. So take a screenshot of again in case I forgot this thing. So screenshot of this 6, screenshot of 7, screenshot of 8. You need to be in this mode till your last schedule exam ends, not just the CAT. So it's not just about the CAT. It can be the ZAT that is the last exam, or IRMA that is your last exam, whatever is your last exam. So it's not a 1 month game. It is from now to close to, I would say it's close to a 10-week game. Right? So after this, there are other exams as well. So in your head, it is till then. This is maybe the most important message that I want to tell you. Understand that you are on your own from now on. No WhatsApp groups, no 10 different people, no this, no that can help you. Yeah. Even my advice only comes till a particular point. Finally, you have to tell them. All of us, you born alone, you die alone, or whatever those things are there. Essentially, at some point of time, every clutch, including that of the teacher, has to go, and you have to be able to do it. Does it mean that I won't do any sessions? No. About these tests, I have 3 to 4 more blogs that will come up, right? So you can look at the blog. Those who have doubts about what about the morning slot, my test slot, what to eat, sleep the night before, insomnia issues, all of that, I will do an audio post that is there. So I'll do blogs for all of that. Don't worry. So everything that I've not covered right now in terms of the psychological aspect, what sort of food to eat before the test, what if I don't get sleep the night before, all of that I will cover in my blogs. You don't need to worry. The catwriter.com will have everything. I'll also do an audio post like last year that I did, covering exactly how to psychologically get yourself ready for a morning slot if you are not a morning slot person. Your exam is in the morning, should you take your test in the morning? Yes, you should take a test in the morning. That will help. So all of these things are very elementary. If you have not done something, that means you need to look at that. But understand that you are absolutely on your own. I have given almost everything that I can, that I know I have given till now. Whatever little bit is left, that will also be there. But this is the best that I can do. So how to day or be, will your day or be like Chetan? That's exactly what I said. You start your day with breathing exercises, right? You start your day with breathing exercises. You don't talk much. You have this thing, but because each one of you has a completely, some of you are working, some of you are not working. So, it doesn't make any sense. So you know what you need to prepare. You know how much you need to prepare, So it's just that, I've told you a test every alternate day. So more than that, nothing else. Maybe one thing that I missed, if you want, ensure that you're doing a bit of self fitness or running or something of that sort, because I think that is also important. Even if you can take a small walk for some time, it will be good. So just being absolutely fresh. When I take by the tapas, I meant test every alternate day. You can use a 1 hour sectional test, this one. 1 hour sectional test as well. It is fine. See, I'm saying you should take at least 3 to 4 full length tests in a week, right? So we have 4 weeks. So we're looking at including take home and including SIMCAT tests. You should need to look at say 3 to 4 full length tests, take home and proctored tests. So whether 3 to 4 tests means roughly 12 to 15 tests. If it's 15 tests, one full length test every alternate. I don't want you to keep all full length tests right towards the end. Video, see breathing exercises. There are there are few 2 3 things. So you typically do a pranayama, and alternate nostril breathing followed by Brahmari and Om chanting. Those are the few things. Guided meditation as well. I'm not an expert, I cannot do a video on that because I'm not a trained teacher. I just do meditation myself. So you can actually Google that on YouTube. You should get it. Abhijit, a very good question. How does this carefree friend of yours doing in life? Well, he still struggles with motivation. He does well, but he struggles with motivation a lot, right? So he always struggles to be pumped up. So maybe external pressure, work pressure, boss pressure, sometimes, so there are various external factors that kick him into action. He does pretty well because the brains are still there, but there is a huge issue with motivation. Vivek says, what should slot 3 students do when they know number of questions in slot 1 and 2? Vivek, I'll tackle this. There are some more sessions coming up, audio sessions and some other blog posts and that. Which entrance among these is your favorite and why? So Sakshi, for me, my favorite, if you ask me, is the GMAT. But I would say I would create a favorite test, which is or rather, the GMAT would be my favorite test because it's an adaptive test. So your level is getting decided on the spot. You cannot do any strategy. You have to apply and do this, but maybe I think sometimes you are, you like your plus. So I really like preparing for the old cat. So GMAT, I would like it the fact that it's a different kind of pressure. The questions are very, very well designed. GRE, I find it boring because a lot of the GREs half of the test is that vocabulary in verbal, which is absolutely bullshit and it's not challenging at all. Whereas GMAT, sentence correction is a lot of fun to solve. Critical reasoning is a lot of fun to solve. So I like the one, and data sufficiency is also a lot of fun to solve. And it's like GMAT is something where I can get in without a lot of prep. Like just a bit of practice, I can get in and it's fun to do. CAT, I like the old CATs when there was no sectional time limit. There was no sectional time limit. Difficulty was slightly higher, and you had to completely manage everything. You had to manage how much time, you had to manage your strengths, your weaknesses, the time. So I absolutely loved that because I felt that brought out your innate strategic element a lot, right? How good you are at strategizing. Avinash, mentor chatterbox when I get stuck in questions, I think, whatever I spoke about, say breathing exercises, meditation, you have to get into all of that. How, sir, SimCats like the actual cat, how difficult? Anmol, if you would ask me, SimCats, sir, I'd say difficult by about 20%, right? So on average, about 20%. Any activities recommended during free time? So during free time, I would just say, do things that don't tire your eyes out that much, so because you're spending a lot of screen time. So even if you want to read something that you like, read a book, but not too much of screen time, because without knowing, screen time actually drains you, right? And you're expected to perform on the screen and you're spending. So I would say free time, nothing like playing some music and taking a walk. I would say if you have free time during the day, playing some music, you can't take a walk if it's very hot. But otherwise, say the best unwinding would be to take a walk and listen to some music, give your eyes a rest. You can give past year papers also. See, 2 hours, 3 hours after a point, past year papers also you can take or solve the questions. That not this thing. Then my work involves a lot of talking through the day. I know, Karishma, I know that's there. But even that, completely reduce it as much as you can, if you can reduce your talking through. How much sleep might be enough, especially on the day before CAT? Manthan, I'll discuss that in a separate thing altogether, that day before CAT and all of that. I'll do that. Pratik, CAT 2017-18, you can take it either as test or practice. It doesn't matter, honestly. It's a 3-hour test. This one, 3 hours, 2 hours. It's not too big a deal. It's more to do. It doesn't matter. Honestly, it won't matter if you take it either. Just wanted to ask you if the time to work on new concepts of quant and just what I already. Now, this is something that people keep talking about. Say, should I maximize my strengths? I knew this was there, but I didn't want to get too big. I wanted you to figure it out. Think about it. Should I maximize my strength to work on? Just work on wherever your next marks are going to come from. You should know where your marks are going to come from. Suppose you're already solving all the questions in RC at least a good number of questions, you have 80% accuracy, right? Your task of maximizing strength doesn't mean that you will solve even tougher RCs to get even tougher questions. Are you going to get, is that a way to more marks? Or by say, so solving or by mastering VA, which is your weakness, and there. So obviously, by squeezing that last bit out of RC between that and say getting much better at VA, you get more marks there. So I would rather spend this thing on VA, right? So, and strength means also what? Strength means relative to others or for your own self. So you might think that this is a strength, but does it, if strength means that you're easily able to cross the cutoff in that. So only then, if you're able to cross a cutoff in something, only then I would say. So maximizing a strength again can be a risk, because suppose you like arithmetic and then you start like, I will solve the craziest arithmetic questions. Again, very bad from a test taking strategy, because when a test taking strategy ABC approach tells you even whole test is about leaving out the toughest questions and solving out easy and moderate for all questions. So maximizing your strength and minimizing your weakness depends upon where you're going to get. Will it be possible to reach out to me personally? No, unfortunately not. Anaga, to go into thoughtless awareness would help turn into monk mode. I think just focusing on regular breathing and 2-minute meditation. Don't do crazy stuff. Say just do that series of breathing exercises, because thoughtless awareness, everything means you're trying to do something. So just try to do that breathing exercises and focus on your breathing with a very mild this thing, and meditation, that should work. I'm not getting worried and I'm totally relaxed 1 month. This is making me worried. What should I do? But I don't really, uh, as long as you know what are the things that you have to do and you're doing those things, if you're relaxed or not, does not matter. Anju, what if we do not possess the energy to do back-to-back? At least once, maybe you should try to do it. Once you should try to do it if you can. Vedic is keeping the saying, can we utilize 1 hour sectional test consider new pattern? Yes, you can see. After a point, your practice is to develop certain specific skill sets in terms. So selection in 60 minutes, selection in 40 minutes. I don't think after a point, once you understand it, there is any this thing. Think like a monk, Jay. I think there are enough and more people online. So I've learned all of this before the day of YouTube celebrities, who look really good and are very well groomed and wear fancy clothes, even fancy robes, and are celebrities on YouTube. So I learned all of this from books with people who are genuinely monks and who look like mendicants. So maybe the difference I can say is that I've had water from upstream, whereas all the things on YouTube are packaged boiling water. So you package bottled water from downstream. So yeah. So I don't follow that stuff, but yeah. Number of questions in a section. I don't have any this thing. A number of questions in a section, we've already covered that in detail in the previous months. It can be anything between 20 and 25. Others, sir, should we start any new chapter in quant? If not, others, if say there is, that is touching that new chapter, you've reached whatever marks you can through other sources, that new chapter is the only, there are easy questions that in quant that you're not able to solve from that chapter, then you have to. See, essentially, any easy question you should solve. If you're not solving an easy question, that's a problem. Any novels you could recommend which won't interfere with monk mode? Thrillers definitely won't work. M maybe one of the novels that I really like a lot, which is also relatively light reading. It is so two novels by Herman Hesse. One is Siddhartha. That is a fairly decent book to read by Herman Hesse. Siddhartha by Herman Hesse. Hermanhesse. Herman Hesse. Siddhartha. So you can look at that. And any other novel, also another novel that is not bad to read by him only, is Narcissus and Goldman. So so I just type the title in. Vaibhav, how to identify silly mistakes in QA. I've already made a detailed post on this on my blog, thecatrater.com. QA strat. You can QA strat, how to improve your quant percentile, post number 1. That is very much so Shikhar, you figure out your prep, So I want you guys to figure out your prep. It should be this thing. What should be we do one day, Mishpreet? I'll cover that in a separate session. Don't worry. One day before the cat, I'll do that. Vijay says, how many books have I read till now? You can say on average 25 books, and maybe for the past 15 to 20 years. So yeah, so that 25 into 15, 20, 25 books a year for the past 15 to 20 years. So that. Tanish says importance of e-maximizer workshops. Yes, for an application level, if you're facing an issue with purely application of questions, then e-maximizer is very good. It's not accuracy, it's not selection, but if it's what you call application, purely application of different patterns, then e-maximizer is useful. One day before the CAT, I said I'll do all of that. But I keep last week in terms of mocks, this thing. So, no, last week you don't need to skip the entire last week. Maybe 3-4 days before the exam, you don't take a mock. But entire week before the last test, not taking a mock. So you take a mock till 2 days before the exam. So your last mock should be day n minus, day n minus 2. How much time should I give to breathing and meditation? Roughly say 15 to 20 minutes. I've seen that my routine takes me about 15 to 20 minutes. Can we revise all SimCAT questions? Yes, you can. Ritika said last year in CAT Center, my computer wasn't fine. It was very, very slow. What to do? Ritika, unfortunately, I don't have an answer to all questions. Sometimes that happens. Poor centers. It's just bad luck. You just have to say, do the best you can. So the name of the book, as I said, 2 books. One book is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, and second book is Narcissus and Goldmund. Narcissus and Goldmund. So both can be useful. Hey, the PW student with 13 minutes extra time per section. How did I change my strategy with extra time? So 30 minutes extra time does not change anything. You still look at the selection only, right? So whatever the selection post that I did in the LMTC, this thing. So ABC approach does not change, right? You use the A's first, B's next, C's next in quant. Same thing for DALR and this thing. You just have that bit more time. So nothing should change in terms of the way to solve, because we're not doing different things at different times. Kirti says, I feel tired after workout in the morning. By evening, I feel sleepy. But Kirti, if I were you, I'll completely cut my workout right now. I won't work out because workouts are tiring and I won't have enough mental energy if I were you. So I won't work out. I'll just do a small run or a walk just to say, what is the ideal workout at this stage? Your breath should come to your mouth. That's it. You're not panting heavily, but at the same time, just a bit of sweat. You should be light, slightly, say beads of sweat should form in this thing, because if you're doing work, it takes a lot of energy. Absolutely a lot of energy. You can't even say focus on reading properly if you're doing workout. So no workout, just fast that workout, and whole of November, just take a walk or a run in the evening. It's been useful because most of the time when it's mostly my students who teach me what I need to talk about. When somebody is sick, how do I know most of the things? Because I've been interacting with students for so long. Usually, whatever goes through your head, more or less, I know. And also, whatever I've tried to do I've tried to speak about, say, from personal experiences and say what I've practiced or, know I need to practice what I've practiced. Manal, yeah, what do you think? Cut off for strength training for last 2 days? I think I would, if I were you, I would cut off strength training completely from now on for the last 1 month. Siddhartha is not about Lord Buddha. No, it's about a fictional character. Yash Raza sir, how come you correlate much with athletics? I'm also a big fan of sports, but not able to find about the jaws. But sir, because see, for me, doing well in a test is not about knowledge, right? Because I know that just like every ball that is bowled is different, every question that is posed is different, right? Every RC passage is different, everything is different, right? And a sportsman goes out and performs that day, right? In a limited time, he has to perform. Whatever practice he does is this. So for me, which is why this is because you guys are still thinking college exams. In college exams, whatever you bloody mug up, you just go and regurgitate that. Here, are you just mugging up and vomiting stuff? You're not vomiting stuff. Like a sportsman, and why cricket specifically, or this thing is because every question is like a ball bowled at you, right? In swinger, out swinger, spin bowling, this thing. You've done all of these things in practice as well, right? But finally, you need to go and perform on test day. So, which is why I feel it is like that. It is like a sport because it is not knowledge. It is not knowledge at all. Knowing a question and say doing that step, knowing how to hit a cover drive. That is why I say everybody can know how to hit a cover drive, but only few people can hit a cover drive like Kohli, because he's perfected that. That is why I feel Yash, it is so much like sport, because it is about performing. Every question is new. Like every ball is new, every match is new. So that's why I feel it. Thanks a lot, guys. That's the session. I hope you guys try to move into that space that I wanted to talk to you about and get that psychological strength in.